So this week, the theme is Beyond the Rumor Mill, and we all know the power of fake news now. Um, Whatever side of the equation you're on politically, we've seen that go back and forth. And essentially what we're dealing with inside of ourselves is that our mind can be a constant source of fake news. That is... And we have a history here. We understand kind of how this works in the big macro picture of the world. I mean, if you want to point to the darkest example, we would think of Adolf Hitler, who famously said, if you want people to believe a lie, make it highly emotional, make it short. So it's an emotionally impactful statement that is short, and then repeat it as often as possible, and eventually it kind of becomes the truth. So this is kind of how propaganda works, and what we may not be aware of is that our own mind may be doing this to us as well. It's been established in my field for a long time that mood disorders, when people feel really down or really anxious, what you can observe in those people's experience is that their own mind has become an automatic negative commentary on their existence. And they can't really seem to refute. And part of the reason for that is that if a negative belief about myself gets really rooted in me, and as I'm moving through life, it just kind of keeps inserting itself into my consciousness, sometimes in the background of my consciousness. It begins to feel like the truth, and because it feels true, it has an automatic flow of emotion and even body reaction to that negative thought. And once that takes place, it's a stress response. And what we know about stress, it's that thing we talked about last week with the owl in the maze. If I'm under threat, my creativity, my problem solving, my thinking becomes addled. Just doesn't work as well. So it's very easy, the compassionate view is it's very easy for us as humans to fall into a place with ourselves that we don't really realize we're falling into, and once it gains momentum, we can be trapped. So we might ask the question, do I have my thoughts, or do my thoughts have me? And that's the work of this week, is to meditate on thought. And the goal is, like, if my thoughts are experienced as who I am, then the danger there is that any old thought that my mind conjures up becomes my momentary identity, or becomes a repeated identity. It becomes a groove in my identity. So we all have seen this within ourselves. We've seen that a really irrational, negativistic thought about ourselves can kind of become who we are. One way to think about this is that when my thoughts emerge, I like this imagery. If I have a negative thought or a distorted thought, a misperception of reality that's repeated often, and it comes up, it's kind of like this. It's stuck to my face. And what we're going to work on this week is observing thought as a flow of events similar to the flow of sound in our natural environment. So when we hear a sound, it comes and it goes. It has a signature, and it's an experience while it's there, and then it disappears. So that flow of sound, materializing and dissolving, is very analogous to the flow of thought, materializing and dissolving. And what we don't realize is that our thoughts are thinking themselves. They're not we're not really in charge of what's being produced. And so the flow of thought could be something we would watch go by. People use different metaphors, but like I have this window here I'm watching things move past, like clouds in the sky or birds that fly by. My thoughts could be like that. They could be just events that come and go. And the window is my mind. My mind is always there, but what's seen in that window is always changing. And that's essentially what our relationship to thought could be. We could be observing, watching that go by. That's very different than being the servant of each thought that comes into my mind, or caught by it, or owned by it, or identified with it. So this negative thought that has a hold of me might come up like this. By observing, my observing mind will eventually create some space between me and the thought. And then it can become a choice to see a thought come and let it go. And you can think of many examples of people caught in their own mental construct of the world. For example, think of a poor individual who has agoraphobia. Oftentimes what you find out is that there's a repeated thought in their mind, which could be something like, if I leave my house, I'm going to do something stupid or embarrassing. People are going to see it, and everybody's going to hate me, which is going to make me want to leave my house less. So it's this self-reinforcing thought that basically says, stay home. It's the only safe place. And the difficulty is that the more a person obeys that thought, the more it feels true. The more it feels true, the more ownership that thought has over my existence. And it's just a thought about what might happen if I leave home. So this week we're going to, not try to eliminate negative thoughts, which is impossible. The human mind is always thinking about what could go wrong or what could be wrong. It's part of what helps us survive in a really unpredictable world. And we just don't want those thoughts to own us. We want our thoughts to be at our service, not us to be at the service of our thoughts. So we're going to practice a meditation called Sound and Thought, and this week we're going to do the 8-minute body and breath meditation that was in last week's meditation, followed by sound and thought. So we'll first be grounded in the body, in mindful awareness as best we can. Then we'll be invited to listen to the sounds in our environment, and listen to sounds without their labels. So like right now, the label I hear is clock ticking. But clock ticking isn't the actual sound. The sound is, there it is, and I can hear it as an event in my ears. I could see my ears as like essentially a microphone that's just receiving what the environment is giving and delivering it to my awareness. So the first part of this meditation is to notice in as much detail as possible all the sound around me. And like all mindfulness practice, our focus isn't rigid, it's gentle and attentive, and when we lose our focus, we gently bring it back. And then the meditation will invite us to something that can really change a lot of things, which is now transition your awareness to the flow of thought that's entering your mind and then leaving. So thoughts are events that happen on their own. and I'm observing that go by.